In Britain, the rich seem to be getting richer as the poor get poorer. Across the land, the incomes of the least wealthy households fell again, pointing to a rising trend in poverty. Data from the Resolution Foundation showed that there are over 8 million low and middle income households in Britain, just under half of which have children. These families can't save and can't work themselves out of the poverty trap they live in. Inflation added to the problem, rising above 3% in 2017, mainly because of the record slump in the value of sterling after the Brexit vote, while increases in average wages remained weak by historic standards. As part of its efforts to reduce the overall deficit, the Conservatives have, since 2015, cut back on tax credits, child benefit and housing benefits. The research shows other governments have done better. Under Labour, child poverty fell, dropping from 3 million to around 1.6 million. This implies that the previous Labour government actually delivered on its pledge to halve child poverty. But just after the Conservatives took power, child poverty seemed to start rising. At the same time, there appears to have been an increase in the share of incomes going to the top 1% of earners. Is the British Prime Minister out of touch with working families? And can the government really do anything about the problems of poverty in the UK? Simple questions with important answers. And let's start with this. Does the public know that more than 1/3 of the UK's child population is currently living in poverty? We put that to the people here in central London. Here's what they said.
A lot of people that sleep on the streets. It's very expensive to be in this country. So not very surprised that people are living in poverty at all.
That means that the 2/3 are not doing enough to spread across to help the others.
We've got into a situation where we have outrageous inequality, and we need to do something about it.
It's loads of crime, and the people and children trying to find a better place, peaceful place. That's what I think.
That's definitely a huge problem. That's life chances going, the longer that kids stay in poverty.
It's pretty upsetting, I guess, isn't it, to hear? Maybe there should be more awareness of it as well, I guess, would probably help.
Disgusting, and a lot of people should be ashamed of it.
I didn't know that. It's news to me, and I think it's terrible being British.
I didn't, but I'm not surprised with our current government.
Yes, we have a very serious situation here in the UK with child poverty, with quite a large percentage. Something like between 28 and 30% in poverty. And this includes families that are working, who are still going to the food banks. So if I were to give you an example, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Scandinavian countries have what are called a happiness quotient. The people in those countries are happy even though they pay high taxes, but that's because they get a wonderful infrastructure for childcare, for the benefits they may need if they're disabled or sick, and also the wages are not high and they do pay high tax, but they get a lot of help with children, with young people, and with keeping body and soul together, as we say. It's an expression that means making sure there's enough food at home and care, and people in those countries are happy even though they pay high taxes, unlike here where we have in Britain there's bigger and bigger gap between the poor and the rich.
I didn't know that 1/3 of the child population is living in poverty. However, it doesn't surprise me. I think children are the most affected by all the adverse conditions in our society. I know there's over 700,000 children that are going through obesity right now. I know in Lambeth specifically, a recent report called the Lambeth Equalities Commission report found that 1 in 3 children was born into poverty, let alone growing up in it. So it doesn't surprise me, but also statistics around poverty are quite misleading because they don't include homeless people, they don't include rough sleepers, they don't include people in bed and breakfast. So really, I'm surprised that the stats ain't worse. But for me, this is a problem that's underreported, really valued, and there's not a lot of action around it. So I think as a society, we need to start identifying those problems and start looking for a viable solution.
Since 2015, the Conservative government has effectively frozen the value of tax credits, child benefit and housing benefits. The rise in inflation after the Brexit vote has added more economic pressure to those who depend on these benefits. What are the public's thoughts?
Benefits is kind of for people to feel better about themselves, for those who are in good situations to think we are doing something. But let's be honest, it does something, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more that needs to be done for everyone to be in a good position.
Sometimes I look at people who are on and who has got their family denied of what they used to. I pity them sometimes because they are no more able to meet what they should be able.
The whole benefit system is wrong and should be, I would go for a universal basic income.
Of course, we are just humans. We need to support each other. Simple answer.
I don't know what they were hoping to achieve by it, but probably just to spend less money, really. But yeah, it's not working.
I mean, most people, I guess, especially people of my kind of demographic, my age, all pretty much voted Remain. Or at least they would tell everyone they voted Remain because they don't want people to know.
Since 2010, when they came in, things have gotten so much worse, substantially worse, for children, for people who are now living on the streets, and yeah, they should take a long, hard look at themselves and have a real think about what they've done, because it's disgusting.
It's getting expensive for everyone to live in London, not just in London, I suppose, in the UK. It's a generational problem and it hurts to see.
Is them being greedy scumbags and pretending that they need to save money for the national economy when they're actually just taking it themselves.
Yes, it's a complicated issue because this actually, we go back before 2015. In 2013, the United Nations condemned the United Kingdom. This is the first time the United Nations has condemned the United Kingdom for anything in 70 years because of the bedroom tax. So this was a situation of disabled and sick people who were getting housing benefit to help them pay their rent, but they were penalized. The then Chancellor, George Osborne, reduced their benefit because an extra room meant they were living in some sort of luxury, but the United Nations condemned this as a violation of their human rights. That was a dark time. It was one of the darkest times for the British welfare system. I mean, this is what they call a Christian country. And the drop in benefits, there have been cuts in benefits, so it isn't even as if they've stayed the same. The cuts in benefits, welfare benefits, cuts in benefits for the unemployed, tax credits have not gone up. So the people who are struggling even more because there have been no increases in these benefits.
I think a real problem in today's society, and especially around legislation, is the fact that all these benefits have been frozen, while things like rent and inflation continue to rise, which means people will soon be excluded from the places that they've lived for generations, simply because of policies that are not inclusive of people and understand their situations. And for me, I think that's an awful oversight. And I'm hoping that the current government will start to tackle that in a genuine way, because we don't want places like Brixton to become exclusive for people that can afford it only, and exclude people that have lived here for generations.
Prime Minister Theresa May said that work is the best way out of poverty. But the record shows 60% of Britons in poverty are in working families. Is the Prime Minister out of touch? We asked the public.
Probably not. I think she's looking at statistics that's different, but having said that, they're picking 1 out of 1,000 to say, hey, this is the situation. At the end of the day, I mean, the minimum wage is too low. I mean, groceries are too high. What can you do? You could be working and you can't afford groceries, easy as that.
I wouldn't say he's not in touch, because he must have some family around, but at the same time, sometimes there's political blindness. They are blinded from seeing what is going on in the society itself. So they still do not really believe. Sometimes one of them will ask how much is a loaf of bread cost, because they couldn't say it.
Everybody is out of touch until they've done the research. No, that is not the issue. The issue is what her basic philosophy is, and I think that's the wrong philosophy.
There is also disabled people in their families. They can't afford for work. They have benefits. Maybe they don't have a lot of benefits, but they say go to work, but the question is, are they able to go to work? Healthy condition.
I don't think she understands how poverty works. I don't think she understands how people get into that situation. And the various strategies that can help them out of it?
I definitely think, yeah, so very much out of touch. She's come from a very well-off background, gone to a very good university, and now she's working, well, as you know, a politician and everything. It's quite easy for someone like that to look at people that don't have as much money and say, oh, come on, just pull your socks up kind of thing.
And when the rents are so high, when prices are going up for food, for bills, sometimes work's not enough. And when work's not enough, you need the government to step in and help people. And for her to that to be her motto, that's not good enough. And you need people like her, people on all political spectrums, to be doing more to help people who are struggling, because work's not enough.
I think it's not just on this one as well. I mean, I'm looking to get a job right now. I'm having a few interviews. I'm trying my best, and I'm struggling with a degree to just get part-time work. So it's not easy for anyone, let alone people without any qualifications nowadays.
She's out of touch. It's easier for her because she obviously came from like an Eton background. So many people are working, probably harder than she works, but are paid sort of minimum wage. Nurses, teachers, work their arse off, but still can't really afford like London rents and things like that.
Well, is Theresa May out of touch? I think Cameron was out of touch too, her predecessor. He talked about the Great Society. His Chancellor, George Osborne, talked about the Northern Powerhouse. Well, people up north in England are not doing well at all. It's been a difficult time for the whole country, but she is out of touch because when work is the best way out of poverty. We have had the masses of companies and businesses going under in this country. We've had masses of companies going into administration. So that means thousands of redundancy. That's more people on benefit. And when people go for jobs, you might be one of 200 or 300 people applying for one job. Likewise, those are healthy, fit people. Likewise, sick and disabled people who want to work cannot get jobs. And this is something I have been studying, researching, and writing about for many years, which is that you can be at executive level, have a master's degree, but if you have cancer or you're sick, nobody will employ you. They don't want to employ sick people who go into the hospital all the time.
I think the comment that work is the best way out of poverty is quite short-sighted. It doesn't talk about the adverse conditions people are in. It doesn't talk about the lack of support and guidance people have. You know, services like Connections that used to support people in high poverty areas get into employment have disappeared. So for me, it's very oversimplistic to say work is the best way out of poverty. For me, supporting each other is the best way out of poverty. Understanding underlying issues and tackling them is the best way out of poverty. Coming together to find solutions and support each other is the best way out of poverty. Poverty is such a huge problem, you can't just have one answer for it, because then poverty wouldn't exist.
Let's look at the statistics. Average incomes in 2017 to 2018 increased by just 0.9%, the lowest rise for 4 years. Child poverty also increased from 30.3% to 33.4%. For the poorest third of households, income has actually fallen by up to £150 in the last year. The Resolution Foundation found that over 40% of low to middle income families feel they would be unable to save even £10 a week. Rising housing costs, austerity, a fall in working hours, a slowing down of benefit increases, welfare cuts, and a larger share of incomes going to the top 1% of earners. These things are all happening at once. What are the public's thoughts?
The 1% controls everything, and then the rest of us get screwed. That's it. I mean, like this doesn't matter what I think. It's going to be this way forever.
From what I'm seeing within the society, within the community, within the estates, so within the street, on the bus, and wherever, we are finding that there seems to be nobody moving out of the wretchedness. It's like the wretched ones are sitting there. So where are the profit going? It seems it's going somewhere where we don't know. And that may be to the rich, who is getting richer.
I think it's equally terrible, and as I said, I think we should be vastly reducing our level of inequality. We have there were several examples for example, in Scandinavia, which are much happier countries and have much lower inequality.
The main point is, I don't believe actually about this percentage.
It's not, I mean, unless you want to have a very long conversation about what's wrong with the fundamentals of the system, there's not a lot to be said about it, really. Like, you can put a Band-Aid on it, but...
It's been going on for a while, I guess, that kind of thing, but I think it's recently become worse and the disparity's become a lot larger than it was before. As in terms of ways of actually kind of solving that in the next few years are probably going to be quite difficult, but I guess over time the idea is to kind of gradually distribute wealth around a bit more, maybe.
It's difficult for people, like normal people like me, to think about how you can even deal with stuff like that, like riots, like they don't help. Protests, peaceful protests, that's what you need to try and make the world wake up and realise that the 1% are getting richer and the rest of people are getting poorer. It's a difficult one. That's one I just don't know what to do about.
You go back to that first question about a third of the UK's children are in poverty. Like, the 1% getting richer just makes no sense. There's a massive level of basic inequality, and you got to hope something like universal basic income maybe comes in, but it's just a dream right now.
It's sad, but it's true. I don't know what we can do about it.
Yes, it's very interesting and an irony that we do have a tremendous poverty problem in this country, not just with young people, not just with children. We have elderly people, older people living off credit cards, old people going bankrupt. The state pension in this country, in Britain, is the lowest in the developed world. Your average person gets $570 a month. Whereas in Europe, even Greece and Italy, in countries that are not as prosperous as others, the pension is much higher. Also, we have a big issue right now in 2018 in Britain with something called universal credit, which is a benefit that many people need if they are unfortunately unemployed or sick. And that used to be sickness benefit, JSA, job seekers allowance. It has all been consolidated into one benefit. But people are waiting 8 months for their first payment. And people also have to fill in 30 to 50-page forms. Your average person just can't do it. And particularly sick people, people with Parkinson's. If your hands are shaking, how do you fill in a 58-page form about how long does it take you to lift a spoon to your mouth to have a bowl of soup? And this is what is causing so much poverty. Wages are not high enough, and people are being starved of benefits.
So for me, when we talk about the 1% that are well off, that don't have any issues, compared to the 99% that have constant issues around raising inflation, lack of jobs, austerity, for me, I kind of come back to our communities, the communities that are suffering. And I think it is our responsibility to actually start to occupy the seats of power so we can be at the table when the policies are made that support these 1% and be there to actually change these policies to represent the 99%, the majority. And we keep excluding ourselves from things like voting and being representatives on local council and national government. And I think we have a responsibility to get involved. And until we take that responsibility seriously, we cannot protect the futures of our young people, and we cannot protect our present right now. The environment we're growing up in and our kids are growing in is hostile. And we need to change that, and that will only change when we decide to stand up and be counted.
And now this simple and central question. What, in the public's view, should the government do in order to decrease the level of poverty in the UK?
That they can enforce, which then the 1% doesn't take advantage of, and then give back to the community. But apart from that, apart from taxes, there's no other way of raising money to help those who are a little less fortunate than us, I guess.
More better houses for children, for families. Children benefit because it gives them the spirit of aspiring. But when a child is living in a very ghetto environment, it limited their thinking.
It's a very long list of things that it could do. It could increase minimum wage. It's not rocket science to work out how to reduce inequality. The Labour government after the Second World War achieved great strides in that direction, and we should go back to that.
There's many people, they got rich for nothing, actually. They receive a lot of money for no reason.
The little guys at the bottom, they've got to work about 5 times as hard just to keep a roof over their heads. And until you readjust the priorities there of government spending, I don't think you're going to see any difference in the poverty rates, really.
people, they get kind of a bad rap in the press a lot of the time. People try and look down on people like that and say that they are just trying to cheat the system or something like that. That's rarely ever the case. Obviously, a very small percentage of people will do that, but that's because people are always going to take the mick when they can.
Like all the things you mentioned, the tax credits, they need to be looked at that. They need to rise, the living wage, national minimum wage. They need to put money back into the pockets of working people, and instead of the top 1%, like you said. So looking at policies which can help people at the lowest and help people in the middle, because things are just getting worse for all brackets of society apart from the top 1%.
Personally, I think more investment into social capital, into arts. There's a heat wave right now and wasting so much solar energy potential. I think we just need more investment, and sadly, everything's been on hold since the Brexit vote. It's a joke right now.
Theresa May should leave, and Jeremy Corbyn should come in.
I don't think we're going to be able to. We're going to see any change. We're not going to be able to have a change in this country for poor people because, as Ian Duncan Smith said when he resigned, which was 2 years ago, 2016. When he went to these cabinet meetings and heard Tory cabinet ministers saying, we don't need to help these people, they're not going to vote for us. It's not going to change. There is a brilliant film that got Best Picture at BAFTA, the British Academy Awards, last year, I, Daniel Blake, by Ken Loach. This is a brilliant film about the way people struggle just to get the basic benefit. This was a man who had a heart condition. And I don't see how this country is going to help get people out of poverty when all they want to do is constantly be trying to bring in austerity. When most of the cabinet ministers are millionaires and they have no idea of what it's like to live from hand to mouth. The Trussell Trust, which administers food banks, is running out of food. And I don't see this country doing anything major to help people out of poverty when there are masses of redundancies still. The economy is not strong. We keep being told, oh, the British economy is strong. A strong economy means many people in work, people not needing a supplement to their income with benefits. So I don't see, I'm not going to be a flag waver for Labour, I'm not supposed to, I'm a journalist, but I think a change in government is going to see something better for this country.
My thing, I know this might not sound like a practical answer, but for me, I think we need to stop austerity right now. Austerity concentrates too much on improving our present situation without looking really insightfully into the future. Our young people are being left naked by the £100 million cuts to schools, where they're being left naked by the decimation of the youth services. They're being left naked by the lack of investment in them, and they are our future. And until we remember that they are our future and we invest in them, we are finished as a country in the future. Because everything right now is too short-sighted, and I think we need to start looking at the future.
How long was that? 55 seconds. Can you stretch it?
35 seconds?
Yeah, can you stretch it slightly?
Wow, I thought it
by
was much
10 seconds more, yeah? Okay, so...
Well, just add something to it or start again.
You can go slowly, you can...
No, do I have to say that part again?
Yeah, sorry, because we leave you out all the way, we don't cut you.
I think we need to wait for this crying baby, right? Oh, she stopped crying. Just give me the counter, yeah?
I'll ask you the question again.
No, I got the question.
So I'll tell you when 10 seconds is left,
yes.
Okay? No worries. Well done.
So I know this might not sound like the most practical answer, but I think we need to stop austerity right now. You know, in terms of how austerity works right now, for me, it's too much about preserving the present. It's too short-sighted. And what it's done is we've had the decimation of the schools with £100 million cuts. We've had the decimation of the youth services, decimation of the police who are reacting to the crimes. You know, we've had the decimation of all aspects of our communities, which has left our young people naked. And we have to remember that the young people are the future. And unless they grow up in an environment that is productive and progressive, they will not be able to take up this mantle for us in the future. And we will have no future. So for me, austerity is far too short-sighted, and we need to start concentrating on preparing for our future.
Adam Corlett, Senior Economic Analyst at the Resolution Foundation, stated, "Reducing child poverty has been a goal of politicians from all parties in recent decades. But our analysis shows that child poverty is likely to have risen last year, and that rises since 2010 have been underestimated in official government data."
Austerity hasn't harmed the rich. They've got a bigger proportion of income than they had before. But the poor have suffered.
as the Conservative government has tried and failed to balance the books. The endless squeeze on benefits, public spending and help for those in need has done great harm. Instead of delivering prosperity for the many, it's led to financial pain so severe for the poor that it's little short of economic anarchy in the UK.